Hey, just testing real quick before I get my invite.
Dee-dee-dee-dee.
Okay, I gotta turn him down, I think. Well, I want to hear what he's saying.
Try that in a small town, so that's probably better off. People like you, people like me. Heaven on heaven, heaven's on. It's you, me. ADE. I sent you the link. Also, Jeff, you can throw the announcements
Penis.
in the
Penis, penis, penis.
announcements Discord. So here I'll just copy what you wrote and not make it third person.
Hello. Hello.
I may or may not be able to make the after show.
Oh. Hello.
All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. All
Hello,
right.
hello.
I need a push to talk or I'll just click the mute.
I think it's fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. And your camera's not working, you said?
I only have a camera on my work laptop and I unfortunately left it at the office for the weekend.
That's fair. I will trust that you will not say the N word just randomly. Now my mouse is dying. Hello. Why don't you? I don't know anything about you really. I think I've watched a couple minutes of a couple of your videos, but you want to explain who you are to me and to people watching?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of have a similar mission to you in terms of enlightened centrism. I think I have a slightly different definition, but my application of this is less of the ideology, which you kind of focus and gravitate toward, and more of the practical in terms of policy. Um, my real long-term goal for my channel would be to get an open-sourced think tank for political discussion to actually form policy suggestions that we could practically implement into society. I've put a couple into the ether myself, which is like an affordable housing plan that fits the right wing ideals. Well, the GOP ideals for federalism, for their ideals and free market concerns with current affordable housing policy, and tried to actually create something a new idea that we could actually work around, both parties would approve of, instead of both just kind of ramming what they want through every 2 years and then going stagnant for 6 years after that as a president.
Sure. So, what is your background? Who are you? I mean, obviously, as much details as you want to give away. Don't dox
Yeah,
yourself.
no, my name's Tyler. You can call me that. It's much
Okay,
easier to use.
That's much easier. We'll go with Tyler.
Yep, and I dropped out of high school. I festival hopped and probably did some things I shouldn't talk about on the internet, illegal activities. But at about 28, I decided to go to college, turn my life around, became a computer programmer.
Nice.
Now I'm working into I'm working at one of the two people that in a startup, and we're a sister company for a more successful company. I'm trying to get into the ownership of that company as well as set myself up for the future.
Nice. What language you code in?
Um, Unfortunately, my job, the computer programming degree, kind of just got me into it. I barely use Java and PHP, a little bit of SQL, and that's it. Unfortunately, 80% of my job is IT work.
That's I can only write SQL queries and I can use ChatGPT to write some Python and some VBA. But I highly recommend using ChatGPT or any of the generative AI to help write code because it's very, very good at it, in my opinion. For the basic stuff, for the like, as soon as you're programming satellites and all that, it doesn't work out. But
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
oh, sorry, continue.
Well, I was going to say. So what? So okay, that gives me an idea of what you're about. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, so I had a conversation with a gentleman named Josiah Ruminate. He was just talking with Sitch and Adam, Pisco, and Destiny on his stream the other day. And in this, again, we kind of share a similar ideal. Yours is more ideology, mine is more kind of political politics based. I'm kind of wondering some of your tactics because you're currently working on trying to convert Vosh to a centrist view. And I feel like that's a huge fish. And this guy.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm working to convert Vosh. I would say that I believe the right way to act in the presence of people you disagree with is generally with an empathetic and positive attitude. I'm not under any illusion that Vosh is going to become a centrist or anything like that. But I do believe that, treating someone with respect is more likely to convert them than force them to go deeper into their ideological hole. I mean, like Destiny was basically a far left social justice warrior, if you want to put it in simple online political terms. And now he's pretty centrist. Although I did see some of that Sitch and Adams stuff where he basically said all conservatives are retarded or something like that, which is kind of like
Trump's a fascist, and he'd rather see millions of people die in a civil war just to get Trump behind bars. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Well, that's the question is how much does he actually believe that versus how much is that of just his. This is what he does for fun, and he plays video games and he talks on the side.
Yeah, I'm just more critiquing that he's kind of in the. I do see some leaning toward the center from him and some actual picking up of the ideologies of the other side, but he's still pretty far left in terms of like all Republicans are bad, evil, Trump's a fascist.
Yeah, I mean, I do not consider Destiny a particularly principled individual. I think he or I should say his principles are not like ideological. His principles are pure cold rationality. And then however that serves him, which, is a very cynical way of looking at it, but like what serves him could also be good for other people as well. Genuinely pursuing truth in a cold rational way is actually decent because, for example, he calls out all the bullshit on the far left because if you are pursuing truth coldly and with rationality, then that is where you'll arrive. You'll arrive at the conclusion that the progressive left is as ridiculous as the far right. The extreme progressive left. I need to do a better job of differentiating those two.
So I get what you're saying. And now, just for the sake of the fact that I have a little bit of limited time here, I'm sorry to switch it back to the
go ahead.
topic. I have 4 points that were brought up in this debate that I kind of wanted to bring up to you and see how you'd handle them because I have my own ideas, but I feel like I'm much nicer online than I am in person. I'm very quick to be a fucking asshole in person, but online I'm even shocked at how nice I am when I re-listen to some of my debates. Like
Interesting. You're in the minority. That's the overwhelming majority of people would be the opposite. They're much more terrible online than they are in person.
Yeah. I'm kind of shocked by it as well when I look at it from a third person perspective. But so I'm talking to this guy. We're talking about, I'm kind of trying to pull him toward the center here in terms of, yes, it's bad that, let's say, Donald Trump denied the election, but we also have all these instances of Democrats denying the election. And sure, their actions might not have been as bad, but why have you never called any of these out? And when I brought that up, my first point is when confronted with these, he kind of just, instead of like addressing my point, he would just kind of repeat what he previously said about how it was just worse the Republicans did it. He'd talk about Trump, wouldn't actually address the points, and then just move on. How would you go about keeping somebody a little more on task without kind of being bombastic and kind of like Rob would be when he debates this particular person?
Well, I don't think I would think of it in that regard. I would when I talk to people, I am solely interested in having a conversation for my own enlightenment. I don't debate people with the intent of converting anyone. That's never what I do. I just go, okay, if this person disagrees with me, my only objective is I'm going to genuinely try to understand what they believe, and then I will do my absolute best to explain why I disagree. That's it. That's my goal. And my hope is that by doing that, if some person avoids the question and goes like, and says, "Oh, what he's avoiding," I just keep repeating the same talking points. Well, then I just go, okay, from my perspective, if the audience sees that, they'll recognize that he's dodging the question. There's no point in continuing it.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, then you're basically saying I think my own diagnosis is I need to be a little more forward and keep them on task because I'm just bad at verbal debate. If you
Well, let
actually
me
sit
ask
down,
you. I guess this is how I would conduct this conversation with you. Is this a hobby for you, or what is your goal? Because I'll tell you from my perspective. Like 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 why am I having this conversation right now? Why am I streaming? Why am I doing all these things? My goal, my long-term 5-year, 10-year goal is to have a material impact on the public discourse. I would like to be in that position. I'd like to be the blue sky vision is centrist destiny, except not as pure cold rationality and slightly sociopathic potentially, but we'll see. Because it seems like there should be more people who just are speaking common sense and trying to facilitate action in ways that are not partisan. So like Destiny will go and rally for Democrats and all that and do canvassing. It's like, why is there not some 500,000 subscriber YouTuber who's trying to coordinate to get ranked choice voting on every state? Right? Why is there not someone online who is talking to Vosh, talking to Destiny, talking to Sitch and Adam, talking to Actual Justice Warrior, talking to all these different people online, shoe on head, getting all of them, all of the anti-establishment people to get together and say, hey, let's all put aside our political differences. We'll all go to one state and get ranked choice voting on the ballot. Like there should be someone like that. And that's the dream. The probability of getting there seems low as of right now, but that's sort of the vision that I operate by. And so like what the reason I am willing to have conversations with people and the reason I'm interested in growing out my channel and I put the time that I do in this is it's with the intent of getting to the point where I can have a material impact on public discourse. Now, there's other reasons I'm just naturally interested in conversation, so that helps, and I'm kind of led by that. But I guess my question for you, like, what do you hope to? What is your? You said you want to do like policy and all this. How does the debate get you to the open source policy thing?
so there's two prerequisites. The open source policy thing, I feel I need two things. One, to remove a lot of the toxicity and like really demonizing tribalism in it. I don't want to actually change anyone's views. I want them to still be progressive, neocon, natcon, paleocon, whatever. I just want them to not damn the other side as well so you can work together. If you demonize the other side, you then can't work with the demons you've created. Otherwise, you're just enabling them. So that has to
Right.
go
So
away.
from my perspective, my thought is if I spend the next 50 or 60 years of my life dedicated solely to addressing that problem, I might be able to affect it like 1 to 3%.
Oh yeah. Just I'm talking more. I just for the people that I think would be of value to my greater mission statement. I'm not going to try to convert everyone in the world, but I think Josiah is more intelligent and informed enough from his own perspective to offer that critique from his perspective in terms of like looking at some of these policy ideas I have. The second is, unfortunately, it's clout, and I don't have a Patreon set up. I don't care about any money from this. I got a full career I'm happy with. Um, it's the fact that a lot of people just won't talk to you if you don't have the numbers. So I'm doing these debates and whatnot to one, get better at verbal debating, and two, get the people that would actually, I think, benefit. Even if let's say I get Destiny to do some debate and he doesn't actually add anything to the policy, but one of his viewers is an economist, like Econo Boy, and then I start chatting with him on Discord, and now I have somebody with economic training that can look at this affordable housing policy idea I thought up, or can look at this restructuring patent idea to close the wealth gap. Those are the two policy videos I put forth so far, and have this economist come in and say, okay, this is where you can improve. I like this idea. You can emphasize more here. Here's some ways you can siphon money off of other programs that were trying to do something similar and not accomplishing it. Since your program will accomplish it better, you can take money from X policy and Y policy. You can also even maybe get rid of some of those policies over there. Things like that. If you jump into one of my policy videos, you see that's all it is me trying to list out concerns and things I could potentially do right or wrong, etc. It's like really just wonky level policy based.
Okay. Can I give you some challenging advice or I guess a challenging question?
Hell yeah, dude.
Or maybe I can give you a perspective that is just challenging. I don't think like I've said all of the answers to all of our problems basically exist right now.
Mhm.
They're already out there. We already know what all the all the correct all the we already know what all the better policies are. right? Like, for example, it is self-evident in my mind that Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell should not be allowed to own the stocks that they legislate on, right?
Yeah, okay, I could see that argument.
So it doesn't seem like we need more people talking about what policies we should implement. We need more people getting those policies implemented.
See, that's where we might have some disagreement because can you envision a counter argument to that argument that you just said? Is there any good reason why you think people in government should be able to own stocks?
To enrich themselves.
Okay, yeah, but
What would the counter argument be?
The counter argument would be once we limit these public officials to not have the same access to wealth that any other citizen has, you're going to isolate some of the top people. Some of the best people that could potentially be politicians are going to say, why would I do this? I can barely afford to live where I want to live off of that salary.
Yep.
Why would I do this if it's going to handicap the wealth I can pass down to my children? So you're going to take some people that are less interested in doing it because they're, this is like the great job for them. The more qualified people are going to pass it up.
Sure, that's one potential downside, but I don't think that in any way outweighs the positive aspect of removing corruption from
Sure, I mean
Nancy Pelosi legislating.
But when you have that discussion, you have to make sure that both of those sides are heard, and that's why we've already had some similar, maybe not strong enough, but some attempts to change that. And that in this policy, we see now that people at Congress can't have a direct say in what stocks they buy or sell. They have to hire a third-party firm that they're not in contact with. Now,
or they should just be required to own ETFs.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, but like, the point is like we've already kind of had this discussion in the past and come to some solutions. Now, again, those solutions might not be strong enough, but taking into consideration both of those, yes, you shouldn't be able to, if you're making policy about a particular sector of the economy, you shouldn't be able to go out and purchase or sell stock from that sector of the economy. But if you hire somebody that you're not in coordination with and they see, okay, this policy is coming down the pipeline, it's being spoken about in the news, and this professional goes out and sells that stock because a news story came out, that's completely understandable.
Sure. I guess I don't see how this challenges my belief that we already know what we already are more or less know what the right policies are. It's a matter of getting them implemented.
That's what I'm saying is that this has kind of already been implemented, and a lot of what you see online is like it's more of an ideological. They shouldn't own stock, but they already have a layer of separation between the policymaker and the person buying stock, and it's supposed to be that they're not in contact. So this has already been kind of addressed. Is my point.
Sure, but it doesn't seem to be working because they continue to get incredibly rich. Kelly Loeffler makes how much money off of, what is it, Citron or whatever the work from home software was right before the pandemic. They clearly had knowledge ahead of time. My point, I don't think the biggest issue is lack of good ideas. It's the ideological war preventing those ideas from getting put into place. So I guess my question for you, again, a challenging question. What puts you in a better position to come up with policy as opposed to the thousands of people who have spent many more years on these issues?
Absolutely
thinking about
nothing.
them?
Absolutely nothing does. It's not that I want to be the one coming up with it. It's just I did because I wanted to set the example. I would happily take if somebody came at me and said, look, I have a different way to implement this good idea using modern day technology. Let's say they want to implement some form of socialism that didn't work in the past because we didn't have the right technology for that level of central planning. And they say, here's the policy ideas I have. Can you make a video on it? I would make a video on it. I try to bring in economists. I try to bring in experts in different fields, policy writers, people that could actually form it into like real legislation, things like that to come in and debate this policy. I think this open source would be people infinitely more qualified than me, which is why I'd have to become a better verbal debater in terms of like rhetorician, in order to stand up to these experts and not just Dave Rubin it and say yes to everything I'm told.
That's fair. The Nickelback of centrism. Would you quit your career to do this if the opportunity presented itself?
Oh man, that's a tough one because I really like my job. My bosses are both really cool, and I think there's a path for ownership of that really like set in stone industry, but at the same time, like, if I see six figures coming in a month for this, which I highly doubt for something this niche and wonky, then probably, but I would be more prepared to do both. I would rather have my main source of income and then do this as like my passion hobby.
I was gonna say, so this is not so much a mission for you as it is a hobby that could have benefits for like yourself and other people.
I don't know. I would have to see what the future brings, but I don't like ruling out the possibility that I would be able to, if it get presented with doing more, if I could make this. This is what would be my dream job if I could make $200,000 a year doing it. Let's put it that way.
That's fair. Well, what I'll say, the way I'm approaching this conversation is sort of in the lens of the how do I say this? I want to stop using the word Jordan Peterson on my streams. I say it too often. The maps of meaning perspective, where it's like, hey, the question you have to ask yourself right now, assuming that you are coming to me for advice or opinions or whatever, the best advice or the best strategy is, what do you want 5 years from now? If you could have the life that you could have, are you a big Jordan Peterson fan?
I don't really dislike. He's a little bit of a menace on Twitter lately, but like a lot of what he said in the past is very good. And I agree with a lot of it.
Do you know his whole, spiel about what, like, if you could have what you want 5 years from now, what would it be? Do you know that whole thing he talks about?
It wouldn't be much different than what I have right now. Probably a little bit more down the road with some of these things. I'm kind of in the building process still, but I'm on the path to kind of what I want 5 years from now.
Okay, that's fair. I guess again, my perspective is like when I'm online, when I'm doing these things, my goal is to say what I believe to be true as best as I can. I don't have any other instrumental goal that I'm working towards. Now, I do believe that saying what I believe to be true as best as I can will achieve the other goals that I do want, but it's more important to say what I believe to be true and sacrifice those goals if need be. So if my goal is to make money on this or something like that, which may or may not be the case. I do certainly, it would be nice to get this channel to a point where I can be completely sustainable, not on just the YouTube channel, but with other sources of income, whatever, independent consulting, whatever I need to do. But it would be cool to get to a point where I have complete autonomy and I'm not worried about, saying the wrong thing or something like that. It's more important that I say what I believe to be true as best as I can than to get to that goal, right? Because if it's like, well, if I wanted to get to that goal, I'd be more focused on I don't know, selling ads or asking for super chats and all that stuff. It's like, no, I'm not trying to do that right now. I'm trying to build up my credibility, and you do that by being authentic and by saying what I believe to be true. So I wouldn't advise anyone to do anything other than that, in my opinion. Like I've had a couple people ask me like, what is your advice or whatever if I want to get into political streaming or whatever. It's like that. It's like, well, first off, I don't consider myself that at all. And second, I would say why even do it? If it's just out of interest and hobby, well, then that's fine. There's really nothing I can say that would make a difference anyway, because you're getting value out of just doing it. It's like playing League of Legends or whatever for me, or Teamfight Tactics. It's like I just enjoy doing that. I don't necessarily. There's no advice I need about how to do that better or something like that. So my question, or I guess my just perspective is, unless you are genuinely saying what you believe to be true, which includes trying to figure out what is true, which is like why you do things or whatnot. Like I was just writing in a journal or equivalent thing about like, well, who am I and why am I doing this or whatever. It's like, and this goes back to, I don't know how much of my stuff you've seen, but I've talked, I grew up in a household filled with conflict. My parents fought all the time. I was the mediator. So I learned those strategies very early on. And it's not just strategies, that's just how I'm wired. I internalize external conflict. And so when I see, obviously, all the political polarization, I'm wired to be overly sensitive to that and to want to do something about it. Now, that's of course wildly unhealthy in many ways because, for example, I probably could be spending my time on things other than this YouTube channel that would be more healthy for me in my personal life. And I do try to, make that conscious. But it'd be very easy for me to just say the most important thing is to do the YouTube channel because I'm trying to address external conflict. It's like, yes, but is that just cover for the fact that like I moved recently and one of my good friends down here just moved and I don't have that many friends in my local area. So maybe I should be spending more time doing extracurricular stuff than spending my Saturdays, streaming. I don't know. That's a different that's a real conundrum. And I have to be honest about that. And there's no other approach that I would recommend. It's like, well, if this is just a political hobby, does it really matter how far you get with the policy stuff? Or if you really want to do it, would you be willing to quit your job and all that stuff? And if that's the case, how would you set yourself up so you could do that?
I'd
That's my
s-
word vomit.
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of. I just haven't gotten. It's only been about 2 months. I don't know how far I could take this. I don't know if there's going to be an audience out there that would allow me to quit my job. So I think this is more the hobby. Maybe hobby's the wrong word for it. Maybe hobby's not strong enough because the way you're kind of using it in context doesn't really describe the level of give a shit that I'm at with this. I would really like it for it to succeed. I would really like to like actually take part in it. I don't want if my name never got brought up or attached to it, I didn't make a dime from it, I wouldn't care. I would just like to see some policy ideas that actually get these things done, get implemented. Again, affordable housing and reducing the size of the wealth gap through restructuring patent law are the two ideas that I thought up. I did a bunch of research to try to just better understand these two policies and the history of them. So I've watched debates about them and whatnot. Like I really do actually want the mission statement to work and to kind of go what you're saying about speaking the truth. I would sum that up under the integrity, and the whole way I've styled my life is to keep my integrity intact, not just in this realm, but what I do for work, just how I handle personal relationships, how I speak to people. All these things are always portraying the truth, sometimes a little too polite. Maybe I don't get the full truth out because I don't want to be a dick, but I completely structured my life around that level of integrity that you talk about, and I completely agree with you there.
Have you tried joining or contacting like a policy think tank, like an established think tank that does policy in exactly the areas that you're interested in?
Not as probably as firmly as I should. I've tried to reach out to a lot of people, like on Twitter. I've sent people like messages, emails. I've sent people emails. A few people answered back, but for the most part, 95% of people never answer me back. Maybe it's just my tactics. A guy named John Podhoretz, runs the Commentary Magazine, probably one of my favorite neocon podcasts out there. It's fantastic. He answers me every now and then, and he's like, I'm begging for some sort of like mentorship or just nudge in the right direction. And he's just like, does not give it to me, but at least answers. But yeah, I've reached out. Nobody cares.
That sounds like the norm in the world. So that's fair. I guess what is your political like what are you how would you describe your political beliefs? Are you
Oh,
more conservative or
I'd say the
progressive or are you enlightened centrist such as myself?
I would say that if I had to put a label on it, the largest group of my policy beliefs fall under more of a technocrat neoliberal, but you could also put me kind of at an aristocratic, is that right? I don't.
Aristocratic?
Yeah, thank you. Aristocratic, maybe neocon, but I mean, really, like, there's a couple beliefs I have that you could almost say are like far libertarian, right of center, and other ones that like a couple things that like social democrats say. I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty fucking good idea. So it is a little bit of a scattershot.
What is aristocratic neocon? Put that in terms that someone who doesn't pay attention to politics would understand.
Neoconservatism is a kind of a branch of conservatism that spawned out of other versions of it. I'd say it could be best summed up with the kind of like the Mitch McConnell type in politics. kind of
Or Lindsey Graham
Lindsey Graham
just wanting war to fund the military-industrial complex.
pro-establishment, pro-U.S. as a force for good in the world, that we should expand democracy, things like that. And yeah, so I'd say that I do have some sympathies with their beliefs, and I do think that I find meritocracy, the ideals behind it, as well as aristocracy, they kind of have a very similar foundation. But a meritocracy would be electing people, and aristocracy would be people that naturally rose to the top through the hierarchy. Those are the ruling classes, and I think a mix of those two is kind of more right.
Okay, my initial impression is that's a little wonky.
Sorry.
I don't know why you use the word aristocrat. Aristocracy refers to like the land-owning elite
Yeah. So people that rose to the top through the meritocracy
through birth.
or birth, yeah, it could be.
Aristocracy and meritocracy are opposites.
In a degree, I think that a ruling class does have your rich people that are in a cycle of wealth that continue to stay in that cycle of wealth.
Yeah.
But I feel like with the meritocracy that we have in the United States, people can rise to that class as well. So yeah, maybe I'm using
That's what a
the term wrong.
meritocracy. That's a meritocracy doesn't imply there's no distinction between classes. It
Yeah.
just means that you can move between classes based on merit,
Yeah.
which is the opposite of an aristocracy.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a pure aristocracy. I'm saying like a preponderance of, well, not even a preponderance.
Do you know who Mencius Moldbug is?
A bit. I only dip into philosophy enough to kind of understand the ideology behind the policy positions I'm taking.
Okay, who are your biggest political influences or like ideological influences? Are there any philosophers or thinkers that really?
No, dude. Like people ask me, like, who's your hero? I don't have one. I just, I listen to anybody. I'll listen to like somebody that like
Yeah,
Karl
but
Marx.
whose ideas resonate with you more
Oh,
so than others?
Shit, I'd have to think about it. I'm not prepared for that question. I'm sorry. My notes are completely on a different topic.
That's fair. We'll just think about it. Just over the course of your life, who has been the most influential in the? Like for me, it's obviously been originally. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but it was Milton Friedman for a period of time. I used to be a cringe libertarian because I just was like, oh, this guy is just spitting logically consistent facts. He's destroying everyone. And then I realized, great on paper, doesn't apply in real world. And then people like Jordan Peterson and Ian McGilchrist, Sam Harris to some degree. Those are all people who've influenced me. Dave Chappelle, Bo Burnham to a significant degree as well. So who are some people for you, if you were just to think about it?
I don't know, because like I started out like a big Bernie thumper. I was a big George Carlin. Like George Carlin, I watched. My dad probably showed me that at too young of an age. And so that kind of started to warp my philosophy a bit. But then as I got a little older, like I just put out a video about that song Hooker with a Penis by Tool. And I feel like the message of that was like every young person comes up and just doesn't know enough to know how little they know. And they always
True.
think, yeah. And that song just completely tears them apart. It's like you're saying I'm selling out to the man, but you're drinking Coca-Cola, you're wearing Vans, you're wearing this uniform of nonconformity sold to you by a corporate entity. You don't even realize that you're the man that I'm selling out to, in a sense. And it's really solid music. Like
Right. Rage Against the Machine has become the machine.
Yeah. But yeah, Maynard is accused of sexual assaulting a 15-year-old or something like that. So I don't want to thump him too hard, but
Okay. Yeah,
accusations are, whatever.
Yeah, that's not good. All right. Well, we got about 10 minutes left. Any points you wanted to hit on?
I just want to kind of get back to my notes here about just.
Sure.
So the first thing I asked about, you said you would just kind of leave it up to the audience in order to see that the question wasn't answered. Maybe drop
Yep.
something
I would.
there.
I would. Yep. I would ask. I would get as soon as I realized. Okay, I think I understand how this person thinks. I would move on.
All right, so I think I need to have more faith in the audience, is basically what you're saying here. That somebody watching this will be able to see these bad faith tactics and the dodging.
Have faith in the truth. Yes. If you act in accordance with the truth and someone else doesn't act in accordance with the truth, people will notice that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of like my second. It kind of answers my second point. Is like, but that's kind of I kind of want to ask you about that. My swinging pendulum theory is that like. So Stacey Abrams denied the election. She went in front of the Senate and said that the election was stolen from me in 2018.
Yes. Starship Commander Abrams.
Yeah. Yeah, the
when she was
DNC.
in that thing. Yeah.
They invited her to a governance panel and said she was the rightful governor of Georgia. Every candidate in the Atlanta primary in 2020 that was running for the Democratic office of presidency all backed her claims that the election was stolen from her. No proof. Still no proof behind it. Yet no Democrat even spoke up. She was endorsed across the board
Yep.
by every
Tribal
Democrat.
thinking. Yep.
So when Trump turns around and does the same thing, but to a worse degree and actually tries to act on it, is that in your mind kind of backing up this swinging pendulum theory that if you don't police your own, that pendulum's going to swing back? Then the other side's not going to unilaterally disarm themselves. They're going to do the same shitty tactics that you're getting away with, and it's going to be probably worse because they're going to perceive it worse than you actually did it the first time.
Yes, that's tribalism. That's human nature 101. Your tribe, if you get in a tit for tat with the other tribe, it's just going to escalate constantly.
And it's the swinging pendulum. Unless one side says, okay, let's police our own here and actually, like, stand up and do something, or forgives the other side. Like if Trump actually got convicted on the Mar-a-Lago charges, which looked to be the only serious ones, and Joe Biden pardons him, I feel like that would slow that pendulum down. And that's something they brought up in that debate with Sitch Adam and Pisco and all them. And
Agreed.
I'm all for that. I really think both sides need each other. I think that everything that wants to get through the House should require 25% of the opposition party's vote so that they are literally forced to work together in order to pass anything. That would stop.
Yeah, I don't have much knowledge at all in the actual machinations of policy per se. So I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I can understand it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I think we're fighting a very similar fight, but you're more in the ideological ring, and I'm not. So
Well, I
much.
don't know. You said you were in favor of an aristocracy, which is not at all what I'm.
No. I said, like, if you try to generalize my policy prescriptions, there are some things like a cliche aristocrat would advocate for that I could say I'm also a fan of that. And there are some things that,
I think Hitler loved dogs. And
yeah,
I
not even
also love dogs.
not as generic as that. I'm talking about their actual policy prescriptions.
Hitler advocated for what was the 25-point plan? Like aid for the elderly and all that and the poor. So
yeah, there was some, he was it was a workers' party to a degree, even though it was a bit right wing of a workers' party. But that being said, like, I'm trying to think of examples. I wasn't prepared to talk about this. Maybe if I come on again, I'll actually have better answers to your questions. But I'm trying to think of an example of something like a somewhat aristocratic neocon would implement. Like, shit, I don't know. I couldn't. I'm sorry, I'm not prepared for this line of argument. I'll think about it and get back to you on all that.
that's fair. I mean, you've mentioned several times you're not prepared for this. We're not prepared for this. I hope we're not having a debate, which is discussion, which is just part of the. It's actually good to speak when you're unsure of something, to kind of think out loud and put words to it. That's what you would do in therapy, for example. And it's that process that helps you actually understand yourself, rather than preparing ahead of time and putting out words. It's the active engagement of thinking out loud that is actually what leads you to new information.
Yeah, I like to go through my process of maybe I'll write something down and come back to it in 3 days when I forgot about it. And like,
Sure,
no,
that's
I
definitely
disagree
useful
with
too.
this. Yeah, I disagree with this. That's not what I actually think. Might have been what I was feeling at the moment. And allow myself the process to actually put words to the thoughts that are going through my head. I didn't do that process. And I could sit down and actually go through all that and give you what I feel would be sufficient answers to your questions, which I'm not giving now.
Hey, there's no metric by which they're sufficient or insufficient. Any final points or final thoughts or a quick thing you want to get in?
No, thanks for having me on. Again, I think when I can better convey what I'm doing here, I really think that we're really going to be kind of fighting the same fight, just on different levels. I'm trying.
Maybe as long as you drop the aristocracy term, and also neocons are as bad as the far left.
I wouldn't say neocons; I'd say more netcons. But
no, neocon people who are super, like Lindsey Graham is the worst.
I wouldn't put Lindsey Graham as a good example of a neocon. I'll give you
anyone who advocates that we continue to send money to Ukraine to fight a proxy war in Russia that we did not declare war on.
I'm kind of with you on the money, but I am also in favor of the war in Russia and Ukraine. So that's a whole different beast. We could jump into that.
Right.
I really
well, when you drop that nonsense, then we'll be on the same side. But no, I do appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Tyler.
Stay up, dog.